On the surface, becoming a United States citizen sounds easy enough. File an application, take a test, and appear at a court hearing. Simple, right? Well, it gets more complicated when you start looking into the requirements. First of all, you have to be at least 18 years old. This one makes sense. If you can't even order something from an infomercial before you're 18, why allow someone under 18 to apply for citizenship? Now comes one of the tricky conditions. To gain citizenship, you need to have lived in the U.S. for at least 5 years, legally of course. Now this means you would already have made it over here on something like a green card or a student visa. Obviously, not everyone qualifies for this, so you can see why this condition makes things tricky. Some of the conditions are fairly obvious. Applicants must have good morals and show loyalty to the U.S., be literate in English, that is, be able to read, write, and speak English, and have knowledge of the U.S.'s government, history, and the Constitution. Now the final condition is one that bothers me personally. Applicants must take an oath of allegiance to the U.S. This oath basically says that they are giving their lives to the U.S., they will defend the U.S. no matter what, and they essentially cut off all ties to their country of origin. I personally find this arrogant on the part of the United States and really just plain rude. You shouldn't have to worship the U.S. to live here. I will now outline what I believe to be the 5 most important rights of a United States citizen. The first and probably most important right is our freedom of speech and expression. We get this from the First Amendment. This basically means we have the right to say whatever we want without restriction. The second most important right is the right to bear arms. This comes from the Second Amendment, and it has been tested many times. President Obama himself tested the limits of this right with things like the assault weapons ban. Tying into our freedom of speech and expression is our right to peacefully protest against the government, also in the First Amendment. If the government is doing something you don't agree with, you have every right to speak out against it. I personally believe this right isn't exercised enough. However, I can't blame people for not exercising it, as police brutality has been the end of many a peaceful protest. The Sixth and Seventh Amendments give us the right to a trial. This basically means that you will always have an opportunity to defend yourself against any and all accusations against you. The Constitution also states that you have the right to a speedy trial, but I think most people would agree that the modern-day court system is anything but speedy. The last right I will discuss is our right to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and effects. This is given to us in the Fourth Amendment. Basically, what this means is if a cop comes to your house and tries to search it without a warrant or probable cause, you can refuse to allow them into your house. This is yet another right that should be practiced more, but most people simply don't know about it. Having gone over the rights, I will now outline 5 of the most important responsibilities of United States citizens. Before I begin, I'd like to state that I agree with some of these more than others. The first responsibility I believe we have is to speak out against corruption in the government. The government is supposed to represent the people. Therefore, if corruption exists in the government, corruption will exist in society. The only way for us to properly protect and shape our country is to start at the top. The next responsibility I'll discuss is voting. I don't just mean voting on the president either. Vote on acts you agree with, vote for political groups you support, vote against bills you don't want to pass. You have to take an active role in your government. You can't sit back and complain about things you don't like in the government if you don't do anything to stop or prevent it. Another responsibility we have is to serve on a jury. Now I know no one likes serving on a jury, but think of it this way. If you're in court, don't you want a proper jury judging you? If people won't volunteer their time, the government will have no choice but to appoint specially designated jury members. This could lead to biased answers and unfair rulings, and I don't think anyone wants that to happen. This one may sound obvious, but we all have a responsibility to obey the law. Laws are put in place for a reason. They are here to help protect all of us and make the country a better place. If you don't follow the law, how can you expect your neighbor to? Finally, we have a responsibility to protect our country. Now, I don't mean this in the traditional sense. A lot of people think you have to be a patriot in order to fight for the country. That's not true, though. There are plenty of reasons to fight for your country. Remember, even if you don't like the people running the country, if we get attacked, everyone is at risk. That includes you, your family, and all your friends. Well, that ends this podcast. As always, before I go, I'd like to thank you for listening, and remember, ask questions, do your research, and most importantly, see the world through your eyes, not through the eyes of others.